What are some of the weirdest questions you were asked during job interviews?
Are you in a Satanist cult? It was a religious institution and they had an issue with that in the past, so the question was actually kind of appropriate. Still weird though.
Are you in a relationship? I was far too confused and nervous to confront them about it, but obviously I steered clear from that place.
Who is your hero? You mean Batman or Spider-Man? Do I aspire to be Rosa Parks? Stormy Daniels? I am my own effing hero.
Do you know how to use a computer? Me? Yeah. What's the difference between hardware and software? Me? Hardware is physical components like the RAM and motherboard, software programs, and applications installed on the OK. Name a few pieces of hardware and what they went on for a long time. By the way, the interview was for a position that had literally zero to do with computers.
Will you have more children? No, not right now anyway. Really, are you sure? You're still quite young and was 13 years ago. I divorced a few years later and never had more kids. Worked my off at another job to improve their processes. Sexism at its finest, brought to you by a female lawyer in her 30s no less. Someone who should have known better than to ask those kinds of questions.
Pizza Hut asked me, if you were an animal what would you be?
A cow, so you could milk me dry for 6 years to make your mozzarella and then slaughter me for the Meat Lovers Pizza Special.
Do you always dress like that or do you have normal clothes as well? I was wearing over-the-knee flowy black dress with sleeves, no cleavage, not form-fitting, and it was a hot left right then and there.
Was asked a similar version. Who do you look up to? I answered Keanu Reeves, and proceeded to explain his enormous acts of kindness and humanity. She laughed at me, and I didn't get the job.
If I ever cheated on someone and if I'm currently in a...
Are you aware of laws on working hour limitations for this job? You cannot legally do the job more than 16 hours straight, which happened frequently there. Do you have any other obligations or habits in your life currently that could prevent you from coming in to work on short notice? Assuming they mean have kids or would get inebriated. Oh, do you know? You had the same last name, so I was curious, haha. Related to, I graduated with their sibling. Essentially asking if I was related. All of these things I didn't connect the dots of, asking without asking, legal tricks until much later.
I was asked if I had plans to get married and have children anytime soon. I should have taken that as a red flag immediately, but was too naive to think anything of it at the time.
I once interviewed for a copywriting job and had mentioned on my resume and in my cover letter that I had a successful blog, which was where a lot of my writing experience came from. They asked me during the interview how many hours a week I usually spent on my blog because they were concerned about it cutting into the time I could spend on the found this pretty inappropriate and insulting. Obviously, if I got the job, I would work on tasks related to that job while at it. Having a financially successful hobby doesn't mean someone is incapable of having a job.
That's so audacious of them to assume anyone with a hobby will steal work time. Not only illegal, creepy. SMH, so many employers still ask these illegal questions. What on earth were they asking for then? But he is a hero.
Do you want to have children soon? Got asked this question when I was 16 applying for summer job.
Not right now, but I am always open to new experiences.
They asked me what route I drove to get to the company. I told them. They then commented that I was outside the normal range of hiring. As in, they only hire people who live within a 10-mile radius from the company. I asked why they even bothered to call me in for an interview. They didn't have an answer, and I didn't get the job.
They asked, kinda laughing, so I laughed, then they gave me context and I said no, but still laughing.
What's your bra size? I wish I was joking.
They placed their can of Diet Mount Dew in front of me and told me to sell them. Diet Mount was interviewing for a pet store.
What a particular and absurd reason to not hire Simone.
What class do you not want to teach? It was odd because we're supposed to be go-getters in interviews, especially in higher education. I ended up saying creative writing, because it's out of my area, plus the school had 3 creative writing professors, but of course I do my best if they needed a class covered.
That makes me want to gag.
Q. Why are you applying to this job? Frankly, you can do better with your qualifications. I was so confused, lol. Like, lady, I need a job to pay my bills, what's it to you?
Them, do you do drugs at home, in your car, or at work? Me, where's the option for I don't do drugs? Them, didn't get the job.
I'm deaf and we were writing back and forth to communicate. She wrote to me, can you read? I wrote back, yes. Can you write?
Out of law school, a ton of private firms asked me what my husband did for work and was he okay moving to X town. It was very tiring.
I have a naturally raspy voice and I had a phone interview and the guy was like, how long have you been smoking for? Excuse me.
What would you do in a situation where your partner is combative and refuses to work with you? I thought this was a weird hypothetical question to test my resilience and drive, so I responded with something about how I would keep trying to work with him and wouldn't give the job. It wasn't hypothetical, and they knew in advance that the man specifically didn't like working with women, some BS cultural reason. Struggled in my role for over a year before finally getting reassigned to a new partner with whom I thrived.
I see you aren't married. Have you had before, and are you currently engaging in fornication? It was for a fundamentalist preschool.
I was declined a job because they didn't know if I could encompass their voice. I asked for a bit of clarification, and they said, we subscribe to Yodelin. My job has lots of different theories to base info off of, so I was going through my internal Rolodex thinking I'd really missed something. The person then said, that is a mix of the wisdom of Yoda, and the fun of Ellen, and we're not sure if you can do that. I don't know how I kept a straight face, but I thanked them and left. I still think about it often and it cracks me up each time.
Unbelievable. That is so. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. How can they continue to employ a woman hater when it's, at least in my country, an actionable offense?
Queen, I hope you keep your sass forever. Don't worry, though. It happens to hearing people, too. In the middle of an interview, the guy saw my nationality and native language on my resume and asked if I speak English. The language we used for the last 30 minutes to communicate, I just said, no, and shrugged my shoulders. And after a couple of seconds of silence and visible confusion on his face, we continued the interview, in English. As if nothing.
Maybe this applies more to weird answers, but I also hate when companies ask these questions in interviews. Outside of work-related skills, what is one thing you feel you know a lot about? My answer: cats. I know a lot of facts about cats and this was not the expertise they were looking for. Their loss.
Were they offering?
Is your husband okay with you working full-time? In 2011, in the US. My response: yeah, my husband likes that I bring home a.
I was in an interview for an office job in my early 20s. It was going fine. The interviewer was an older guy, maybe 55 to 60. His cell rang and he picked up, and then he said, hold on a sec, and looked at me and said, would you go get me a coffee, cream and sugar? And pointed over to where there was an office coffee, not proud to say that I did it, came back, and sat down, trying to smile but definitely shaken inside. After he hung up we finished the interview. I did get another interview but didn't go because I had gotten another offer by then.
Had a smart VP that asked anyone at the end of any interview, if I handed you a brick right now, what would you do with it? I was being interviewed for an IT position by a couple of obviously not IT sales types. I told him that I would smack him upside the head with it for asking such a question. He said that was the answer he was looking for and I got the job. For a couple of years as I moved up in the organization, I'd swing by just to watch outside and see the face of interviewees when they got to that question. Most people were absolutely baffled. Hee. Wow, how ignorant people are.
You can't be from Zimbabwe, you're white, your English is very good for a Zimbabwean, do you have electricity, flushing toilets and internet, do you own a lion, do you have slaves? The worst was, have you ever killed someone?